Hi everyone, and thanks again for joining us online for the Master Plan for Healthy Communities. We're continuing with our theme this week, God's Plan in the Global Pandemic. And we had lots of brilliant information last night presented by Jackie Brown, who's a nutritionist from the Medical Missionary Group. So we'll be hearing some more from Jackie a little bit later. But first of all, as we've been doing throughout this series, we'd just like to find out, in terms of those who are coming online and looking at the program, how many times you have been. So if it's your first time, this is the first time you're tuning in, could you please put a number 1 in the chat? So if it's your first time, please put a number 1 in the chat. If you attended last week, which was the cooking sessions with Kathleen, and you're coming again this week, you've attended last night and this evening, please put a number 2 in the chat. And then if you've been joining the program from the beginning, could you please put number 3 in the chat? Okay, so if you could be doing that now, please, that would be greatly appreciated. Now, we're requesting again that if you could please keep your microphones muted and also cameras off while Jackie is presenting. And any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask any questions at the end of the presentation. But if you don't want to ask the question yourself, you can also put any questions that you have in the chat. That will be great. So that's really good. I can see lots of you putting the numbers in. That's greatly appreciated. And just a message from Andre regarding the recipes from last week. If you have requested a recipe, they should have been emailed to you today. And if you haven't sent Andre your email, you can put it in the chat or email him directly with your email address, and the recipes will be sent to you. Okay, so before I hand over to Jackie, it's only proper that we ask God's blessing on this meeting tonight. So let's just bow our heads and close our eyes as I offer a prayer. And we're thankful, Heavenly Father, that during this time where many are confused, that you have given us a clear path in how to maintain healthy minds, bodies, and also spiritual life. So we pray for tonight's meeting, and that as Jackie makes a presentation, that you will be with her, and that all who listen in will be blessed and lives will be enhanced, is our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, that's enough from me now, so I'll hand over to Jackie for this evening's presentation.
Thank you so much, Brother Leroy. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our continual search for healing, for restoration, and also for maintenance. It is said that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So this is not just all about, restoration necessarily. You might be fine, but you need maintenance and help with maintaining your health. It's such a privilege to be here and to be sharing. And yesterday we looked at cancer, God's plan for cancer. Does God have a plan for cancer? And we discovered that yes, he does. I had a few questions come through on my phone. One was, it seems really simplistic. Are you sure that that's all these ladies are using? And the answer is yes. And that's the beauty of it. It can be that simple. But remember who heals. It is God who heals. So as we put our efforts into place and leave the rest to him, that which we cannot control, it's important that we leave to him. Another question that was asked is, are you trying to say that if you do God's plan, nothing ever will happen to you? No, we live in a world of madness, and madness happens. And however, we have our part to play. So again, I would say do what you know to do. the good that you know to do, leave the rest to God. We were living God's plan when my husband had a medical emergency that was not related to God's plan, but that the surgeon said because of God's plan, he lived. So you see, God's plan didn't prevent it. Perhaps God's plan actually held him back some years. I believe if he had been living as he had previous to God's plan, he would not have survived. That's what the surgeon actually noted when he spoke to us the morning after the surgery. So I very much understand, where that question is coming from. And then the other question was, do you do more protocols than what you shared? Yes, we do. There isn't enough time to share everything that we do. And of course, because we make the plan bespoke to each individual person. For example, one lady, part of the program for every single condition or disease is cleanse. We cleanse first because the life of the flesh is in the blood. So we need to cleanse the blood. We need to cleanse the 7 channels of elimination, which are the liver, the kidneys, the colon, the skin, the lungs, the lymphatic system, the blood. We need to cleanse all those channels to enable the body to be in the best possible position to then receive the good things that we're going to put into it. So after cleansing, then you need to start building vitamins, minerals, juices, wonderful foods that build the system. So we do go through a program bespoke to each individual person. Recently, we had a lady on who came to visit us who couldn't do a full-blown cleanse because she was weak. You don't try and cleanse somebody who is already very weak. So you wait, you build them up a little bit first, and then when it is suitable to cleanse, you can cleanse. Although sometimes a change of diet, a change of environment, a change of everything, more water, more exercise, more sleep, you'll find that the body starts to cleanse itself without you purposing to do so. So we meet everybody where they are and try to do the best that we can, and God always is faithful to do the rest. So thank you for those who sent me those messages, those questions on my phone. And so today we're going to look at God's plan for high blood pressure. God's plan for high blood pressure. Well, if God has a plan for cancer, surely he has a plan for high blood pressure. Are these related? Yes, they are. There's such things such as a toxemia tree, which is basically that all disease have the same roots. They just express themselves in different ways. So I have a predisposition. That means I'm leaning to high blood pressure because my father has high blood pressure. My biological mother has high blood pressure or had high blood pressure. Her sister had high blood pressure and diabetes and ultimately died from a stroke. Her mother, that's my birth mother's mother, had heart conditions. So genetically speaking, my gun is loaded, but my lifestyle, physical, mental, and spiritual, will pull the trigger or not, as the case is currently, and I pray it will remain so. So God's plan for high blood pressure, God does have a plan for high blood pressure, and we're going to discover, first of all, what is blood pressure, because some of us have it and we get checked and we're told it's fine, or we get checked and we're told it's high, but we're not quite sure what that means. What is blood pressure? Well, blood pressure is the pressure of the blood inside the heart and the blood vessels. Blood pressure is recorded with 2 numbers. The systolic pressure, which is the higher number, is the force at which your heart pumps blood around your body. Yeah? So that's the force at which your heart pumps blood around your body. Then you have the diastolic, which is the lower number. This is the pressure while the heart is resting between beats. So you always hear the two beats. And one is the heart pumping, the other is the heart resting. Pump, rest, pump, and rest. So what is deemed as normal blood pressure reading? Well, blood pressure reading has a range. You have a range within which it's normal, a range within which it is low, and a range within which it is high. The normal is systolic, the top reading 120/80 diastolic. Okay, 120/80. Now, if you go down, let's say to 110, you're still fine. You're still fine systolic. And if you go down to, let's say, 70 diastolic, you're still fine. So it's a range. Now, if you go to maybe 125 systolic, you're okay. 85 diastolic. Now, if you're not usually this pressure consistently, then there may be reasons why it has raised slightly, and you need to be aware. But usually, you're still within the range of normal. Okay, so what is considered low? Systolic 90/60 consistently or lower is considered low blood pressure. Okay, systolic 90/diastolic 60 is considered low. Anything lower than this is very low, and we need to again seek the cause. The cause of low blood pressure tends to be very similar to the cause of high blood pressure. In fact, one of the things that high blood pressure and low blood pressure have in common is dehydration. So for some people, low blood pressure is dehydration is caused by low blood pressure, or rather, low blood pressure is caused by dehydration. And for some people, for all people actually, dehydration is causes high blood pressure because the blood becomes thick, and the heart has to raise its pressure to pump the blood through the various blood vessels. Sometimes you have a low blood pressure because you're anemic, in which case we need to bump up your iron levels and encourage you to continue to drink water. In an emergency, cayenne pepper, unless you are on a blood thinning medication, if you're on a blood thinning medication, don't take cayenne pepper. But if you're not, and you just feel a little, because it comes with symptoms, which is very similar again to high blood pressure. What symptoms of low blood pressure include lightheadedness or dizziness, feeling sick, blurred vision, generally feeling weak, confusion, and at the extreme, fainting. So these are symptoms of low blood pressure, and if that's the case, then we need to seek the cause. And as I've mentioned before, sometimes it's dehydration, sometimes it's low blood count or anemia, sometimes a combination of both. But the cause needs to be ascertained. So it's really important for us to learn to trace cause to effect. Sometimes it's mental distress. You just heard really, really bad news, or news that has just really dented your heart, and the effect, sometimes the blood goes high, sometimes it goes low, depending on what you are prone to. So it's important for us to trace cause to effect rather than jumping straight for a remedy, because then when it comes back up again, we will never truly know the cause. because we're always trying to mask it with medication or a remedy. So then what is high blood pressure, since that's our topic tonight? Systolic 140 to diastolic 90 or higher is regarded as high blood pressure. Systolic, that's the top reading, 140 over 90. Now, when I've taken blood pressure for health guests of this magnitude, they say, well, my nurse says it's fine. My doctor takes this and he says I'm fine. But this is just taking you slowly up and giving you full-blown, hypertension that is going to be medicated, which is what we don't want. We want to intercept. We want to, stop from going to that level, because it is very hard to come back otherwise. High blood pressure leads to increased risk of heart attack and stroke. 90% of those who have a heart attack have high blood pressure. 70%. So it's really important that we don't just think, well, it's just a little bit of high blood pressure. A little bit of high blood pressure actually is very dangerous. And so it's not enough to say, well, everybody has it and I'm on medication, so it should be okay. It's not. Though you are on medication, you still have high blood pressure. That's why you are on medication. And so we need to change the way we actually think about it as well. Is to find out the cause, change unhealthful practices, correct wrong habits, then use the natural remedies, the sage, the magnesium, the fennel, the chamomile. Use the cayenne and the hydrotherapy to help the body to cooperate while it is fixing up. 80% of those who have stroke first have hypertension or high blood pressure. My father is one of those people. He had high blood pressure first, and then he had diabetes. They are sisters, as you'll discover tomorrow as we look into diabetes. Eventually, because nothing was done, he was on medication. You see, medication does not stop the deterioration. It just makes you believe you're okay, but you're not. And eventually, the stroke. And it's at this point that Daddy started to listen. And it always really grieves. It's very grieving, because you just think, well, why wait so long? Why now? Why didn't you do something then? But you know what? This is the time. Let's do something now. It's never too late. Persistent high blood pressure can also lead to irreversible damage of the kidneys, the pancreas, and retina of the eye. Actually, persistent high blood pressure and persistent, because it comes together with diabetes, because high blood pressure affects your pancreas, and your pancreas is involved in issues with diabetes. Eventually, it sometimes leads to pancreatic cancer, which, as we all know, can be very, very dangerous. So what causes high blood pressure? Well, in some cases you have various different causative factors. 10% you can say can be, can vary in different aspects in terms of stress factors, which is part of it. In terms of some immediate shock or a life-changing traumatic situation that leads someone to suddenly have a huge rise in blood pressure. But 90% of hypertension cases are related to lifestyle habits. 90%. That's all about what you and I do or don't do. Once again, and you're going to have, this is going to be repetitive. Disease upon disease, because it all has the same root. Sometimes when you have high blood pressure and diabetes and cholesterol, as you're going to meet somebody who had all of these things at the same time and was on about 10 to 12 different medications at the same time. And when you start to target one, or you start to target the person, everything fixes up. So she was able, with God's help, to reverse hypertension and diabetes and cholesterol, and was a marvel to her local doctor's surgery. So this also is very hopeful, because if that's the case, then there is something I can do. I don't just have to live with it for the rest of my life. No, there is something I can do, and God will meet me the rest of the way as I put in what I can. Obesity. Every pound of fat requires an extra mile of tiny blood vessels called capillaries. It takes extra pressure to pump blood through them, because as we put on weight, it has to stretch further and further and further. So the heart has to raise its pressure to pump further and further and further. High salt intake. High salt, especially table salt diet, disrupts the natural sodium balance in the body. This causes fluid retention, which increases the pressure exerted by the blood against the blood vessel walls. Okay, so this can be really dangerous. And what we tend to do then, when we are told that we have hypertension and that salt is one of the causative factors of hypertension, then we just stop eating salt altogether. But that's not actually, by itself, it doesn't do anything. My mom stopped eating salt. She just didn't put it in her food at all, but she still had high blood pressure. So why do you still have high blood pressure if it's because of the salt alone? Of course, the right kind of salt is very important. So it's not just about don't eat salt at all. It's use it in very small amounts and use the right kind of salt. What is that? Pink Himalayan salt and Celtic sea salt are the two better options. Table salt is never to be used. Do you find that you just keep adding more and more and more, and yet you taste nothing? And so it encourages high use of salt. With the pink Himalayan and the Celtic, they're so flavorful. You just need a little bit and everything tastes wonderful. But also they have trace minerals. Celtic has all the minerals. The only one that pink Himalayan doesn't have is magnesium. So it's not about stopping salt altogether, because salt balances your fluid in your body, and it's also important for nerve function. So sometimes some people stop eating salt and then they get edema, which is fluid retention in the extremities. Then they get given water tablets, and then before you know it, there's another tablet. Then there's an omeprazole, because now this is having a great effect on your gastrointestinal system, and on and on and on. Smoking elevates blood pressure for at least 30 minutes after a cigarette. And can you imagine, depending on how someone smokes per day, that pressure is perpetually raised. Caffeine increases heart rate, constricts blood vessels, increases the production of adrenaline because of increased nerve cell activity in the brain. It contracts muscles and it dehydrates. So all of this for taste or for a buzz. Well, there are many other things that can give you a buzz, a natural buzz that tastes better and leaves your body in a better position. Caffeine can cause a short but dramatic increase in your blood pressure, even if you don't have high blood pressure. Some researchers believe that caffeine could block a hormone that helps keep your arteries widened, because it constricts blood vessels. Others think that caffeine causes your adrenal glands to release more adrenaline, which causes your blood pressure to increase. Both of these are true. And it's not just in coffee and tea. It's in green tea. It's in Red Bull, which gives you wings. It gives you wings for a reason. It's giving you a high. Yeah. So all of this have a huge effect on your blood pressure. Inactivity. Less active persons have a 30 to 50% greater risk of developing high blood pressure. Physical inactivity is a significant risk factor for cardiovascular disease. It ranks similarly to cigarette smoking. So imagine you're thinking, you patting yourself on the back. I don't smoke, but do you move? Because you're not better off because you don't smoke if you don't move. So it's relative, isn't it? It's relative. Stress, our great friend, which is at the root of all diseases. Your body produces a surge of hormones when you're in a stressful situation. These hormones temporarily increase your blood pressure by causing your heart to beat faster and your blood vessels to narrow. Why? Well, because in an emergency, you need all the blood in your and the adrenaline in your muscles so that you can run faster. You can fight harder, you can jump higher and climb higher. So it's very important that in an emergency, those hormones are released. But if the emergency passes and we're still under this kind of, in this state of adrenaline, of high adrenaline, it starts to have a huge impact on our bodies, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Dehydration. The blood is normally about 92% water when the body is fully hydrated. 92% water. When dehydrated, the blood becomes thicker, causing resistance to blood flow and resulting in elevated blood pressure. This increases the risk of stroke and heart attack. It's so crucial. And no, it's not cucumber water. It's not celery water. It's not even lemon water, though lemon water has its place first thing in the morning. But water is just that, pure water. Your blood is 92% water, not lemon water or any other type of fluid. Blocked arteries are also a causative factor for someone having high blood pressure. If your high blood pressure is due to blocked arteries, it may take a little longer for the pressure to come down with the changes that you'll make initially. This can seem a bit discouraging, but don't be discouraged. Continue. First, the arteries need to be unblocked. Remember, it didn't take you overnight to get the arteries to be blocked, so it's going to take a little while to get them unblocked. This can be accomplished with the same diet and lifestyle changes. Be persistent and consistent, and God will bless your efforts. Now, of course, there are herbs and other remedies that will help. Lemon water is one of those. Lemon water is fantastic for helping to unblock blocked arteries. But of course, they have their place. They have their place. So, if you've taken a child through this, you can have like a straw and fill it with something thick and try to get water through it. It represents the amount of blood coming through the blood vessel that is clogged with cholesterol or plaque. Okay, so now we know what blood pressure is. We know how blood pressure develops, the various different scenarios, the various different lifestyle choices and situations. But now what do we do? How do we reverse hypertension? For the most part, most people, when their doctors or healthcare providers see that they have high blood pressure, they're put on medication. They're put on medication because it's just quicker and easier, and I don't have to change anything. I just have to take my meds and I'm good. I can get on with life. Yeah? But guess what? Drugs do not cure high blood pressure. They only manage it. This is the problem. In some cases, the medications need to be taken for life, and they may have many unpleasant side effects. And the side effects then, when the side effects are felt, then another medication is introduced to get rid of that side effect. And on, you start to embark upon a slippery slope. Drugs do not cure. Full stop. They may afford us a little relief for a time. They may, in an emergency, deal with certain emergency situations, but they will not cure the situation. And so, my biological mother was on high blood pressure tablets for years. She still had high blood pressure as of 3 years ago. In fact, it was getting worse. She kept changing medications because this one wasn't working. So the doctor said, try this one. And then that gave her all kinds of side effects. And then it's like, try this one. And before you knew it, she was in hospital with the side effects of that medication. So it's like, okay, are you ready now? And so she said yes. And that's when we embarked on God's plan. And yes, you're going to say, I've heard this all before. You said it last night. Well, I'm saying it again. Why? Because God doesn't lie. He has a plan for every single disease and condition that you can think of. Nothing escapes him. And if his plan seems so simple, that's because it is. Because he would that everyone got the opportunity to put it into action. I was doing a series of meetings for a church in Canada, and we were there for a whole month. And somewhere during the presentations, a gentleman kept asking me questions about God's plan and how it can reverse high blood pressure. And so I explained, just as I'm explaining tonight. And he kept quiet and he disappeared, and I didn't hear anything more from him. Well, the last week that we were there, he had a comment to make, and he got to make it. And he said, week by week, I've been making changes. I've been drinking water, and I've been doing this, and I've been doing that, and I've been doing that. He's been doing God's plan. His blood pressure dropped. He was on medication, but the blood pressure just kept rising. And so this was like a lifeline to him. If this is so easy, then why am I in so much distress? And he just simply put the plan to the test. And within the time period, I think maybe it was a 2-week period that we were doing the training that he, wasn't training, was presentations, that he asked me those questions. He said his blood pressure had dropped all the way down to, I think, 130 something over 85. He was so happy. And so it does work. It really does work. When dealing with problems, resist the tendency to complain constantly. Trust God with the problem. That does not mean that you don't express yourself. Acknowledge your feelings about the situation and then focus on finding solutions. Because you see, rehearsing the problem over and over at different angles only causes us to feel even more down and causes us to have a spirit of distrust, and this really increases anxiety. So it's good to acknowledge your feelings, and it's good to be able to talk about it with someone you trust and love, and then take it to the Lord in prayer and focus on the solution so that your mind then can be more at rest. The human brain produces and secretes hormones into the system when it is experiencing joy and peace. These hormones, namely dopamine and serotonin, invigorate and strengthen every cell of the body. true joy and peace come from a knowledge of God and trust in Him, even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of distress, knowing that He will bring you out the other end. What has open air got to do with high blood pressure? Well, fresh, clean air has lots of oxygen. Doing deep breathing exercises helps to bring in more of this vital gas to your body. It relaxes the heart. Yeah, so with the high blood pressure, the heart becomes quite tense. And sometimes some people with high blood pressure may also feel palpitations and even angina-like symptoms, which can be very frightening because it feels like you're having a heart attack. Well, oxygen relaxes the heart and slows down the heart rate. It lowers blood pressure and helps you relax and de-stress. Because the natural thing, actually, when you're feeling like this, is to actually stop breathing, because you're holding your breath, because what is this? And that constricts your and lessens your oxygen content even more. Daily exercise. Regular physical activity makes your heart stronger. A stronger heart can pump more blood with less effort. And so we usually know when someone comes who used to be an athlete or is an athlete, because their blood pressures are low, not unusually low, just strong, because the heart is that much more fit, I suppose, and physically strong to pump with less effort. As a result, the force on your arteries decreases, lowering your blood pressure. Start slowly and build up. If you haven't exercised for years, please don't start rigorously. It might do you a little bit of harm, or it might take you a few days to recover. Instead, start slow. Start with a walk around the block. Then as you're starting to feel good, increase that to 2 blocks. And eventually no one's going to be able to stop you. Aerobic exercises strengthen the heart and lungs, and it doesn't even have to be for that long. These include bouncing, sprinting, if you're still able, skipping, swimming, power walking, or just a gentle stroll. It may be that you start with a gentle stroll. That's okay. That gentle stroll will soon become a nice, spring in your step, which then becomes a power walk. Little by little, progressing day by day, week by week. Sunlight. In a new study, researchers analyzed genetic data from more than 146,500 people of European descent in Europe and North America. For each 10% increase in vitamin D levels that these people received, there was an 8% decrease in the risk of developing high blood pressure. Can you imagine this? These are people of European descent. Now, those of African descent need vitamin D even more, because the melanin in the skin is higher, and therefore it blocks the effects of the sun's rays upon the skin. So, if we're going to supplement with vitamin D, especially through the autumn-winter months, we need at least 10,000 international units per day, especially now that we're hardly seeing the sun. Now, when the sun starts to, when the sun does come out, that day, don't take it. Go outside and get the sun instead, because that's the best source of vitamin D that any of us could get. And then when the spring comes around, again, make the most of the sunlight and leave the supplements alone for a time. Proper rest. Stress, jet lag, shift work, and other sleep disturbances make you more likely to develop heart disease and risk factors for heart disease, including obesity and diabetes. A regular lack of sleep may lead to high blood pressure in both children and adults. The less you sleep, the higher your blood pressure may go. People who sleep 6 hours or less may have steeper increases in blood pressure. If you already have high blood pressure, not sleeping well may make your pressure rise even more. So this is really important. But studies have also found that sleeping too long can also increase your risk of high blood pressure. Healthy sleep is increasingly becoming as an important part of overall health and wellness. So if you're sleeping too much, however, you're not sick, you're not convalescing, and there's no apparent cause, then we need to seek the cause. It might be a little dip in mood. Is it depression? Is it lack of vitamin D? Perhaps it's B12 deficiency. Both of these can actually make you feel so lethargic and sleepy all the time. That's why it's always so important to get to the cause, because if you start to just deal with remedies, then you're never actually going to get to the root of the problem. Lots of water. Many people are dehydrated and don't know it. When dehydrated, the body will take water from anywhere it can find it to maintain balance, homeostasis. It may take water from the blood, which then causes a thick consistency of blood, which the heart now has to raise its pressure to push around the body. Drinking water is the only way to rehydrate the body. All other drinks add to the problem, especially caffeinated, sugary, and alcoholic drinks, which take more liquid from the body than they give. So it's very, very important. Just a drink of water, letting someone know, especially someone who has high blood pressure, that a drink of water, or at least 8 glasses of it per day, helps. It makes such a big difference. So how much water am I supposed to drink? You heard me say 8 glasses per day. That's just a general amount that is often, spoken about. Or sometimes it's like take 2 liters. Well, to determine how much water your body needs, simply take your body weight in kg and divide it by 7 to discover how much you need in terms of glasses or mils per day. Always temperate. A simple definition of temperance is moderation. Good things are used intelligently and harmful things are just not used at all. Alcohol promotes high blood pressure and is toxic to the heart muscle. So we'd rather not use it at all. Why? Because it increases blood pressure and puts me at risk of stroke and heart failure. But our society believes in everything in moderation. Come on, it doesn't mean you have to not drink. It simply means you drink just about a couple of glasses a day. But 1 or 2 drinks can produce spasms of the coronary artery, decreasing the oxygen supply to the heart. So it's just a slower poison, but it's poison nonetheless. Overeating, inactivity, smoking, and drinking caffeinated beverages are other areas that may need to be addressed. What about nutrition? A plant-based diet can reduce excuse me. I just had a message on my screen that I need to write. A plant-based diet can reduce blood pressure and lower the risk for heart disease. A review in progress in cardiovascular disease looked at multiple clinical trials and observational studies and found that a plant-based diet reduces the risk of hypertension by 34%. That's just the diet. Imagine if you add some water and you add some exercise and a trust in God. you wouldn't have high blood pressure at all. Why else is a plant-based diet better for you? Well, fruits and vegetables are rich in potassium, which helps lower blood pressure. Plant products are also generally low in fat and sodium and are free of cholesterol. Yes, avocado is free of cholesterol. You will only find the type of cholesterol that clogs the hearts, uh, the arteries, and the other blood vessels are found in meat products. So the only fats that clog your arteries and your other blood vessels are derived from animal products. Avoiding meat, dairy products, and added fats reduces the blood's viscosity or thickness, which makes the blood easier to pump. This also brings down blood pressure. Remove unhealthy fats as they clog your blood vessels. A diet without animal fats and high in fiber lowers blood pressure. Fiber is so important, so we have to make sure we have whole grain. We talked about salt, and it's not just the salt that you add to your meal, but it's also salt found in processed foods. So watch out for processed foods, and as you become more proficient, like Kathleen at cooking really delicious plant-based meals, perhaps you need less, processed foods and ready-made, because they account for about 75% of our salt intake. We do need salt to balance fluids in the blood and for nerve and muscle function. So, as we mentioned before, replace, replace, replace. Then you have the useful herbs. You see, God's plan is so rich, it's all inclusive. It deals with the mental, the physical, the spiritual. Then you have the wonderful natural remedies to add to it. And these are also so easy and they're in our homes. Look at this: fennel, oregano, basil, rosemary, sage, chamomile, hawthorn berries, garlic, cayenne pepper, turmeric, and peppermint. They are fantastic for high blood pressure. You can do a fennel, basil, oregano, and even thyme mix. Make a tea out of it. It's actually very pleasant. And this is also very good for the lungs. If you have asthma, um, that is also another remedy for that. So you're knocking two things out with one stone. Hawthorn berries, just a few weeks ago, they were rich. They're bright red in the trees. If you have hawthorn berries nearby where you live, we picked lots of them and we're drying them currently so that we can use it for the winter. Garlic, you can make garlic tea, which gives immediate relief from high blood pressure, but it can't be sustained. Remember, the changes has to be made alongside the remedy. Or if you hate garlic and you can't stand it, you can get a garlic capsule such as Allicin, which is very, very effective. In fact, sometimes when individuals come off their blood pressure medication, they can take two Allicin in the morning, two in the afternoon, two in the evening. If their blood pressure is very stubborn and quite persistent, they can take, again, four. They can have two in the morning, two in the afternoon, two in the evening, and two before bedtime. And you have to be really persistent and consistent with everything else. Of course, sometimes, what the body needs most of all is a cleanse. If there's a lot of buildup in the gastrointestinal system, if the person is constipated, in fact, that raises blood pressure. And it's really, really interesting to see when someone, sometimes when they're going through a cleanse, initially blood pressure is high. And then when the cleanse takes place and there is a relief, the blood pressure corresponds to that relief. It's just amazing. Similar with back pain, lower back pain, the lumbago pain that sometimes we feel. Sometimes it's a clogging of the blood, the colon, especially the transverse colon, the one that lies across your back. And when this is cleaned, the back pain disappears. Amazing. The body is amazing. Now, consistently, those with high blood pressure have been known to be low in these vitamins and minerals. So vitamin D3, definitely. C, E, B complex, and magnesium. Again, I mentioned cramping. I mentioned cramping yesterday. You know, if you're finding that you're cramping, your toes are cramping, your legs are cramping, your fingers even are cramping, this might actually be indication that you're low in magnesium. And so that's something that can be dealt with very easily. Blackstrap molasses. Some people say, but that's really sweet. Actually, it's more nutritious than it is sweet. It is full of iron. It has potassium. It has magnesium. It has phosphorus. It has selenium. It has B6. So a teaspoon to a tablespoonful of this per day is this is what we have consistently used in order not to become anemic. So we don't stop and start and stop and start, though I do not like the taste, but it does its job at keeping us, on top of our blood count. So though plant-based, we don't have to become anemic. John 14 verse 27 says, peace I leave with you, might I give to you, not as the world gives do I give to you. Do not let your heart be troubled, nor let it be fearful. Fear surrounds us on every side. You know, we've been taught how to fear if we never knew how to in the past 2 years. If you are suffering with high blood pressure or anything else, don't be afraid. God does have a plan. He has a plan for you and me to restore us physically, mentally, and spiritually. And there's a wonderful lady who took God at his word. I wonder if you're here, Sister Myrna. Are you here with us? I don't know if she's here. Maybe she wasn't able to get on for whatever reason.
I'm here.
You are here. Welcome, Sister Myrna. Thank you so much for coming. Sister Myrna is a beautiful lady who called us, I think 3 years ago. Has it been 3 years, Sister Myrna?
Yes, 3 years.
Yes, nearly exactly 3 years. It was December. I remember, got the call. I need to come. Got your number from a friend, and we started to speak. And Sister Myrna shared with me about high blood pressure, diabetes, and also cholesterol and a few other gastrointestinal problems. And it was beautiful because I said, well, the only slot we really have is the beginning of December. And she said, yeah, I'll take it. I said, it's going to be cold. And I said, it might even snow. She goes, well, listen, I feel like I'm dying. So this is a chance that I have to take. If I freeze, what is that versus dying? Wow, I thought to myself. And so she came. And yes, she just embraced everything. And it was such a blessing. Not everybody embraces everything, and that's okay because we're all different and we all struggle with different things. Um, but it's so important that we taste and see that the Lord is good. So at this time, I'm just going to ask you, Sister Myrna, just to tell us a snippet of your story with God's plan.
Okay. Um, for a lot, I've had diabetes for many years. It's about 25 years. When I came to you for about that number of years. Insulin dependent diabetes.
Yeah.
And I started to feel I didn't have aches or pains, but I just started to feel that if I am I live alone because I'm a widow. I just thought to myself, if I go to bed and I need to call any of my children or an ambulance, I won't be able to even stretch my arm out to get the telephone, which is by my bed. That's how bad that I felt all the time. And God has given me 3 children, and all I had to do was pick the phone up and someone would come and take me to their home.
Yeah.
But then I thought to myself, I can't be, they're working people and I don't want to disturb them midnight. So, I decided that I must do something about this. And the last straw was I went to the doctor, and on top of my insulin and a bag full of pills, he gave me more pills.
Yeah.
So I didn't even begin to take the last lot of pills that he gave me because I was so distressed and didn't know which way to turn. And as Jackie said, I spoke to a friend and she gave me the number, and so I called.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a blessing. You came and we did a cleanse, and we then began to introduce God's plan. Of course, with the cleanse came the hydrotherapies, the massages, the long walk up the hills and through the forest. And Sister Myrna was up for everything, so we did a lot of walking, and it was very pleasant. Now, and the cooking as well. I mean, that's something that, we did together a lot while you were there.
Yeah,
And just so that you'll be ready to get going once you got home. And, you mentioned that you were insulin dependent. You
yeah,
had insulin dependent diabetes. So by the time we met, you had brought everything with you. And I remember
yes.
you giving me the bag and saying, I don't want this. I'm like, uh-oh. So because once a guest says that, it means you need to make sure everything is in place to give in place of what they've been having. Now, we put the insulin in the fridge because that's where it's supposed to live. And we said, whenever it's needed, we will administer it. And do you know something? It sat in that fridge for the whole week, and beyond. And she never went back to insulin. Or did you, Sister Myrna?
No, no.
No. I think the real challenge is when you get home. What happened when you got home? Because when you are away, God's plan is a little easier. You got someone reminding you, someone walking with you, someone, doing therapies for you. It's pleasant and it's actually quite nice. What happened when you got home, though, when real life continued?
Well, I decided that life change is life change, and I wasn't going to go back to the way that I was before. So I took all the stuff that I didn't need out of my kitchen and all the herbs and other things. I got jars, glass jars. Um, it was my children asked, "What would you like?" And glass jars. And so all the turmeric, the ginger, the cumin, coriander, parsley, thyme. I just got all that, and they're all in jars on my worktop.
Wow.
So everything was changed. So I didn't go back to my old ways.
Wow, fantastic. And I remember asking you, okay, how are you going to incorporate exercise? And you said, I visit my mom every day. Rather than take any other mode of transport. I'm going to walk. And you're still walking, aren't you?
I'm still walking, and now, before, when I just started walking, it would take me about 45 minutes to get to mom from my home.
Yeah.
And it got easier until I got it down to 25 minutes.
Wow.
And so that wasn't enough for me. So now it takes me an hour because I go the long way around.
Right. You're not even going
Yes,
around the houses.
yes. But I must say that always changed my route because
Right.
yeah, I do, because sometimes people see you and
Mm.
they
Mm.
comment, how many times are you going to walk around? So I try and change my route. Yes.
Wow. So how are you? How is the blood pressure? Um, how are all the other conditions that you were diagnosed with and were taking medication for 3 years ago?
I can tell you that I had to, as you know, people with diabetes have yearly checkup of their blood work.
Yeah.
And when I had my yearly checkup, it was about a year after I came to you. And the doctor, he couldn't believe it. So he
Wow.
rang me and he says to me, I would love to meet you. Can you come into the surgery, because I can't understand what has happened with your blood work. Everything is okay.
Wow.
So I went in, and this was make an appointment to see the nurse, and the nurse told him I was there, and he came in and he was amazed. I'd lost weight.
Yes.
I look better.
Wow.
Um, I must say this. I was walking I think it was to my mother to town. I can't remember where I was going. And this young lady pushing her baby. And she came up to me and she says, "You are very pretty." And that's never happened to me before. And I just think it's the my skin's different.
Wow.
My I have my I feel so much better, and I know that God is with me always. And I just think that he told that lady to say that, so that I'll know that even if I don't feel it, I will know that I look different.
Amen.
I feel different. I feel better. My daughter says I look, I'm more sprightly. Yeah, I don't know if that's the right word.
I think definitely she's telling the truth. And that perfect stranger that walked up to you and let it be known that you were beautiful. You are beautiful inside and out. And God has really empowered you to use his plan for the restoration of your health. And now you're fitter, like you said, you have more energy. You're walking further, and
Yeah.
there's no more high blood pressure, there's no more diabetes, cholesterol. And for someone, who is over 60,
I
you are,
am, may I say, I am 75.
amen. Wow. Congratulations. God is amazing. Because you expect someone of 75 to have high blood pressure, to have diabetes, to have cholesterol. And what you're saying is that God has helped you with his plan to reverse all of that, so that that is not your problem. And that is amazing. Thank you so much. Is there any advice that you'd like to give our listeners, and those watching who maybe are in a different position? They want to be well. Any advice you want to give them in regards to God's plan and the application to their lives?
I would like to say that prayer,
Yeah.
prayer all the time. Pray all the time. Ask God to help you and to carry you. He always will. And also, if lifestyle change means lifestyle change. If you are going to do this, you can't, and you used to love ice cream, you can't say, I am going to have an ice cream just for today. And you have to keep up with your exercise as well.
Okay.
I'm not always ready to go out, but even if it's raining, I'm not going to put it off, because if I don't do it today, tomorrow I might think to myself, oh, I don't want to do this again.
Okay.
So as long as I'm able to, I will be walking, and whatever exercise I can do, I will do. So prayer, keep up with your lifestyle change.
Yes.
And God will help you along the way.
Thank you so much for that encouragement and for the inspiration that you are. May God continue to bless you and keep you in perfect health and peace. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn over to Brother Leroy. There might be questions. Sister Myrna, stick around just in case there are questions for you.
Right. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's a blessing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you both for that. And to our audience, if you have any questions from anything that you've heard tonight, please place it in the chat. There are some questions in already. I'll put these questions forward to Jackie, and then after that, if you want to ask the questions, you can unmute yourself and ask the questions. Okay. So are you ready, Jackie, for the first question I have here?
Yes,
first one I have is, can menopause cause sleep deprivation?
yes, it can. It can actually cause it because your hormones are upside down. Maybe even your thyroid function is messing around. Um, your Sometimes also there's a dip in certain vitamins and minerals, which are being used up more and more. So yes, definitely, it can make you feel very fatigued and lethargic. At the same time, it can make you have insomnia, and sometimes also you can have hypothyroidism, where you're lying there, you're not hypo, I'm sorry, hyperthyroidism, where you want to sleep, but you're lying there and your heart is
Okay.
Yeah, Leroy, I think that's at her end.
I think, right, I was going to say, Jackie seems to have frozen there. If it's her, or was it my end?
No, it's Jackie's end.
Okay. So should we just give a while, see if she can reconnect?
Yeah, let me see if I can contact her. While we are waiting, actually, if you joined the meeting anytime after the start, if you would like to be kept up to date with all the programs that we have, we've got another 2.5 weeks worth of programming. If you'd like to be kept up to date with the programming, if you'd like to receive the handouts from the first week, if you'd like to receive the recipes from last week from the healthy cooking classes, then please do put your email or contact details in the chat. You can either put them in the open chat, or you can put them directly to me. I've just got a message to say that Jackie's back, so I'll hand over to yourself, Leroy, and Jackie.
Yeah, I can see Jackie there. Okay.
All
right. So,
yeah.
So had you finished in terms of, can menopause cause sleep deprivation?
I was going to talk about also progesterone going down. It's a hormone, and so like I mentioned about ashwagandha maca powder. This is very helpful, as well as the various vitamins and minerals.
Okay. And another question here. I have Himalayan salt, but it does not contain iodine. Is that a problem?
It is not a problem if you're having a diet that's balanced and maybe you're getting your iodine from other sources. Kelp, which is a sea vegetable, has iodine. If you're having these seaweed, that you can get from health food stores, they're quite pleasant and you can have them with a meal. If you're having a balanced diet, your various fruits and vegetables that are kind of yellow and orange in color will have some amount of iodine. Even jacket potato, when you bake a potato and you see that orange lining, that is iodine. So if you're having a fully, varied plant-based diet, with all the various components involved in your diet, you should be okay. But if you need extra iodine, you can have supplementary kelp, which can balance things out.
Okay, thank you. Another question, can you spell the garlic vitamin, please?
Yes, it has been spelled. It's been spelled twice in the chat. I think
Has
Andre
it? Okay, right. Okay, so that's in the chat, yeah. Another question here, any ideas on natural contraception?
Natural contraception, okay? The most natural as you get is by counting your days, especially if you're regular. If you're regular, then you know, for example, that you're 28 days. On a certain week, you're okay to play. Another certain week, no games. And then you rotate. So there is a whole cycle. So you have to get to know what your cycle is, and that it is consistent. If you have a regular, consistent cycle, then you can track the times when you're most fertile and you just stay well away, and then the times when that season has passed, and then you're okay to play. Um, in terms of herbs or things to for contraception, I personally um, don't have anything more than that. Some people have talked about caps and female caps and so on. I don't know enough about them, I'm afraid, to speak intelligently about it. But I do know about knowing your cycle, counting your days, and knowing when it's when to play and when not to play.
Yeah.
I hope that
Okay.
helps.
Someone's put here, they didn't catch the name of the products that you mentioned. So I'm not
Which
sure
one?
what that's
Is that the
relating
one
to.
for the menopause?
It didn't actually say, just the question was just in terms of the products you mentioned.
Okay, I think it might be the menopause one, unless the person
Oh
can.
yeah, for menopausal symptoms, yeah, underneath, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So I'll write that in the chat.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and then another question is, what do you recommend for, is it osteoarthritis when the cartilage is worn away and it's so painful to exercise?
Okay. Bear with me one moment, please. Maca powder. Okay, so osteoarthritis. The cartilage is worn away, but also there are issues with your synovial fluid. I would really recommend that you increase your hydration, because that acts as a buffer to that bone-on-bone rubbing, which causes so much pain. Besides that, depending on the area of your body that is being affected, I will do hydrotherapy to alleviate the pain. So you have your water therapies, let's say a hot foot bath or application of a warm compress to the area. And then there's certain things that you can actually apply topically. Wintergreen oil is very, very good for pain of that nature. I usually mix wintergreen oil, frankincense oil, and peppermint. And I usually use a carrier oil of almond or castor oil. And this really helps with pain, but also it helps to alleviate the condition itself. I know it's osteo, which means that it's a wearing away of the various components that help the collagen. You can also increase collagen by your diet. Removing animal-based products and replacing it with plant-based products actually will help to improve your collagen. Butter beans are very high in natural collagen. So again, God's plan is the foundation, and then on top of that, you've got the various things to alleviate pain as you make the transition. So I pray that that helps. And if you're in pain and you're taking pain medication, instead of pain medication, perhaps it would be good if you could try ashwagandha, not ashwagandha, I'm sorry, I could try Jamaican dogwood and white willow bark, which I mentioned yesterday. These are very good herbs that help with that kind of pain.
Okay, thanks for that, Jackie. I think those are all the questions that I can see in the chat. So I don't know if anybody would like to unmute themselves and ask a question.
Yes, please. I was
Okay.
just typing my question in.
Okay.
My son is 13 years old and he's growing fast. He's 5'8". He complains at times that his bones hurt. So my friend said, "Oh, maybe it's growing pains." I said, "Oh, I think I've heard that before." So what recommendation do you have for him? Thank you.
I remember, thank you so much for your question. I remember my eldest daughter saying the same thing, saying that, but she was only like 6. She was like, I'm in pain, my bones hurt. And I was like, what kind of pain is this? And she goes, no. And I rubbed it. I remember rubbing it with aloe vera or something. And she said, no, mommy, you can't, it doesn't make it better when you rub it. So I'm like, well, what's that? And again, after a long search and much prayer, I discovered growing pains. But then I'm like, well, why should growth be painful? Apart from the experiences, obviously, that we go through. And I discovered that she was lacking in vitamin D. So she was growing, her bones are stretching. She had sufficient calcium because of her diet, but she was lacking vitamin D. And when we got checked, it was confirmed she was vitamin D deficient. And this was actually this is when our journey with vitamin D began. We didn't get checked, but because she was deficient, we were all deficient because we ate the same way, we lived the same life. But she was expressing it more because she was going through a growth spurt. There wasn't sufficient, vitamin D to balance everything in her body. Vitamin D and calcium work together, and they help with growth for children and for adults as well. And so if you have one and not the other, the body might scream at you and say, I'm not at ease here. There's something missing. And so the growing pains may be that he's deficient in some of the necessary nutrients needed for his growth spurt.
Okay, thank you. And with the calcium that you mentioned, do you have any specific brand that you recommend?
There is one that we use, but I can't remember the brand. Let me just have a quick look. But we have ample calcium in the diet. It's the vitamin D that is usually lacking. If you are on a good plant-based diet, you should have lots of calcium. But usually it's the vitamin D that we're deficient in because we're not getting sufficient time outside, and therefore not getting sufficient sunlight to produce the vitamin D in the skin that is needed. And also, the darker you are, the more sunlight you need to produce the right amount of vitamin D. So I think the first protocol is maybe get him checked out for his levels of vitamin D. And if it comes back and they said, oh, he's okay, ask what it is. What is the level? And they'll say maybe, oh, he's 40. That's fine. That's over the threshold of normal. Don't be satisfied with that. He needs to be at least 50, 60 plus for him to be okay, for his body to be able to go through the processes that it needs to at this time. So I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Bless you.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. So any other questions? If you'd like to unmute yourself.
There are I've seen other questions in the chat now.
In the chat, I've just seen one come up, yeah. Could you explain why someone on a vegan diet might suffer with IBS and be unable to eat beans and certain fruits and veg?
Okay, I would have to ask more questions. Vegan doesn't always mean healthy. Vegans eat sugar. Vegans drink beer. Vegans smoke. Vegans have lots of processed foods. Have you ever seen on the ingredients pack of a supposedly vegan item? The list is amazing. That's not healthy. So I appreciate that you're on a vegan diet, but I would love to speak to you to find out what that means. What are you eating? When are you eating it? How are you eating it? Because that would paint a bigger picture, and then we can discuss maybe eat it like this, eat this, eat it at this time. For example, beans. Do you soak your beans for 2 to 3 days? Because sometimes some people have a delicate gastrointestinal system, and sometimes beans, if it's not soaked to get rid of some of the phytic acid, is creates a problem. Even lentils, if it's not washed really well and all the froth isn't removed, it disturbs the stomach. So there are things that can be done, and though you're on a vegan diet, and praise God for that, maybe there are areas that we could improve. And so if you like to give us a call, I could talk to you personally, because it's hard to determine without speaking to you further.
Okay, another question. Can you say more about the collagen producing foods, and also if there are any therapy vitamins that can also help?
Vitamins, you can actually get collagen. In terms of supplementation, I've just never used it. We've just always gone straight to God's plan. The application of God's plan is amazing at alleviating symptoms of things that you wouldn't otherwise think were possible. Case in point, a beautiful young lady came to us. She's been diagnosed with a condition that they don't have a solution for. All they can do is continually monitor her to find out how she's doing. That's it. She had excruciating symptoms, that one that was very, very serious. And when it became evident, when we saw it, we were taken aback, but we were not discouraged, because we knew, just apply the things that you know to apply and trust God. And true enough, within days, her symptoms stopped. These symptoms are supposed to be there, just be part of her life, because of this rare genetic condition that has been discovered. So, sometimes we look for lots of different things here and there, and you just need to get back to basics. How much water are you drinking? What are you eating? When are you eating it? Are you sleeping? Because that's when the body heals and cleanses. And that's when, information is stored and the brain is cleansed. Let's get to the basics and then start building on top of that. Because if we're just kind of doing vitamins and minerals by themselves, they won't be as effective. So I think that's what I would like to say on that note, because then, we can discuss many different things, but if we make our food our medicine, it helps. It's a lot better for us.
Okay, thanks for that. And another question. Would vitamin D help with the pain for Osgood-Schlatter disease as well?
Oh, I am not familiar with that condition.
Okay.
So I can't speak intelligently about it, but I can write it down and make sure I find out enough about it to give an answer for tomorrow.
Okay. All right. We're coming to the end now, folks. So I don't know if there are any final questions that anyone would like to ask.
You mentioned dried willow bark for the osteoarthritic pain.
Yeah.
Is that white willow bark?
Yes, white willow bark.
Okay. All
Did
right.
I write right? Yes, it was white willow bark.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes some people say the white willow by itself doesn't do it. Perhaps you can try to see if white willow by itself will do it, but when it's excruciating pain, I mix 2 of 3, or in very severe cases, I'll mix all 3 of the pain herbs, such as white willow bark. So I'll just write that down, white willow, and then you have Jamaican dogwood. Now these are very hard to get these days because people are catching on that God has a whole pharmacy that is waiting to be, uh, that they can benefit from. So Jamaican dogwood and devil's claw. Horrible name, I know, but devil's claw. So these are really good by themselves, as 2 or all 3 in a tea. Um, they're all quite woody, so you would boil it for about 10-15 minutes and then leave it for another 5 and then strain and drain. So if you're making a cup of tea, you use a tablespoonful of each with maybe 400 ml of water, and then boil it. And you can add more water for the second cup of tea. You don't have to throw it away after the first brew. You can brew it again with more water and drink it.
Okay. Let's just final check just to see. Right. The final question then. People with gout problems can't eat beans. What can be used as a substitute?
Okay. I don't necessarily agree that they can't eat beans. I think it's the phytic acid again, because remember that they have gout because of uric acid. And gout is a condition, is like it's of the same condition as arthritis. So there's an inflammation in the system. So we want to do all things anti-inflammatory, including removing dairy and meat products, because they have a lot of uric acid in them. And then if they drink alcohol, again, to refrain. So that is the foundation. Now, if we do that, the body then will start to get into a better condition to receive other things. Another thing is dehydration, because the uric acid has not been able to be filtered by the kidneys because there's not sufficient water. It's all congested in the body, and the body will find a joint or some joints to store the acid into. So hydration is crucial for gout, and removing that which causes it. Beans and lentils do not cause gout. They may exacerbate some symptoms because of the phytic acid, in which case it's really good if you can soak the beans and the lentils. But in the meantime, what other proteins can you have? You can have nuts and seeds. You can have tofu. Um, you can have greens in abundance. Did you know that greens contain some protein? Even potato contain protein. So just, try and make your meal varied, different vegetation, different colors, different textures, while see how things go with soaking beans and lentils. But there are lots of other proteins that you can have. I pray that you do well.
Okay, thank you for your presentation again this evening, Jackie. Could you give us an indication of what your topic will be tomorrow evening?
Yes, before I do, Brother Irvin Reed has his hand up.
All right, so I didn't see that.
Actually, at the moment, did you say that a person with high blood pressure or blood thinners shouldn't have cayenne pepper? Is that what you said?
Yes, well, because unless you know enough about their condition, I wouldn't necessarily tell somebody who is already on a blood thinner to take cayenne pepper, because cayenne pepper thins the blood.
So can the person have the cayenne pepper in a booster? Like when you do the pineapple and the garlic,
the punch.
Whatever, the punch, and there's a little bit of cayenne pepper in there. Would it affect them in that way?
No, it wouldn't do them harm. But sometimes I say when people have problems whereby they're using blood thinners, usually it's like if you tell them without knowing they're on blood thinners to have cayenne pepper, that could be a bit of a problem. So it's important to find out what they're using it for, how they use it, and then you can advise. So if you're having the cayenne pepper in, let's say, a flu shot, that's fine. You can have that. Yeah, so you don't have to worry about that immediate situation, because maybe he's having a flu bomb, maybe he has COVID, or he has a cold and he wants to get rid of it and he's having a flu bomb. He can have that, that's fine. Or if he's worried about that, maybe on that day he won't take his blood thinning medication. Maybe he will use the cayenne pepper and the garlic and all those good things as a replacement, which is what some people do.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, just go ahead. Yeah.
The dogwood, Jamaican dogwood, and the willow bark and the devil's claw, to make tea. What are the measurements you gave again?
I was giving a tablespoon of each.
Tablespoon.
Yes.
Tablespoon. Right.
Of each, and then you can use about 400 mils of water, and boil for about 15 minutes, and then allow to steep for 5 more minutes, and then strain and drink. And you can add more water to this mixture. You don't have to throw it away. You can add more water and boil again. If you're not using it for that day, cover it and put it in the fridge. Tomorrow, take it out and boil again until you can see that there's nothing left. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. God bless you.
Okay, and then coming to a close now, there's another last question here. Lastly, where can we buy the herbs from that you've talked about?
There are many different places. Baldwin would have them, some health food stores or or health shops in various places will have them. Because of where we live, we get them mostly from Amazon. Just Ingredients, it's a good brand because it is just ingredients. And so, but there's certain things that we get from foraging in the woods and stuff, you know. We get oh red oh it's gone out of my mind. We get sticky buds. We get the hawthorn berries from foraging. Um, and dandelion, burdock, milk thistle, red clover. We get the red clover in the summer as well. So there's certain things that you can kind of forage around. But if you don't know what you're looking for, maybe it's best you buy it.
I just asked a quick question. Can I just ask a quick question? I've popped one in the chat and I've raised my hand. Can you please tell me what the normal vitamin D levels should be for an adult woman? Jackie, thanks.
It should be, for an adult, period, it should be between 60 and 80.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Right. I think Andre had something that he'd like to mention.
Yeah, just a quick one, Jackie. So I've been contacted privately and people are asking, what's the best contact number for you if they want to speak to you after the program or at a later date?
Hey, I'm going to put it in the chat. Is that okay, or shall I leave you to?
No, you can put it in the chat if you're happy to,
Yeah,
and I'll take it and pass it on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And those that are online can take it from here also.
Okay, brilliant. And Brother Leroy, you asked me what's tomorrow about. It's going to be about diabetes. We're going to be into a gentleman who reversed his diabetes and getting from him how he managed to do it, and seeing if there's anything that we can use for, to restore us from if we are suffering from diabetes. So we may know someone else who may need the help.
Okay, lovely. So thank you again for the information presented this evening, Jackie. We really appreciate kind of the time and the effort and the reading and the studying that you've been through to get to this stage, to be able to help to help us all. So thank you once again. We'll just close now with a prayer, everyone. So if we can just bow our heads as we pray. Father, we thank you again for the information received this evening, and we know, Lord, that what you want for us is to live a good and healthy life. So may the information that's been presented tonight be taken to heart, and may it help us lead healthier lives for you is our prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. So thank you all for meeting with us online again, and we look forward to meeting you again tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. So thanks again.